Okay. So, welcome to Kidmin Backstage, the place where we talk about kids ministry and take a peek behind the scenes. We try to share a little bit of what we've learned that works for us and some of our failures so you can avoid them. We release a new episode every Friday, and this is your backstage pass to see the magic or disaster that happens behind the scenes of our kids ministry. I'm your host, Gabe Baker, and today I am joined by brother Aaron Boggs. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. So this is our debut with the new table wrap, the new tabletop.
Look
Show
at
it
that.
off for everybody. Yeah. So,
Feels like we've arrived a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, brother Tyrell Daly, for helping out with that. He did the print on it. So, all right. Well, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about what you don't see.
Yeah. So I was joking earlier. What you don't see is the brown wood underneath.
The brown, scarred, stained wood.
No. So, I wrote in the notes, when we see successful people, businesses, projects, that have been pulled off, events, we are witnessing the final result. Of course, I talk about David and Goliath in the spotlight moment all the time, So we're seeing the tip of the iceberg. And meanwhile, 80-90% is all beneath the surface. So every leadership triumph that we see, there's this hidden landscape of challenges, setbacks, perseverance, and all that's invisible. It's kind of like the duck glide, just peacefully gliding across the water. Mm-hmm. But you see this turmoil underneath, just frantically paddling and everything. And so success stories typically showcase the polished outcome, but they conceal the chaos, the hard work, the determination that made it possible.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the premise today is what you don't see, especially in this world of, and this, of course, goes on YouTube and Instagram and all of that, but in this world of social media and everybody showcasing, and obviously, we talk about magic and disasters, and we do talk about our disasters some, but really we're trying to put our best foot forward, just like everyone is. And I do think it can go too far one way sometimes, but if we're looking and we're the ones, the audience, so to speak,
right, and
we see others and we think, man, they really got it together.
Yeah. And that's, I didn't plan on going here now, but that's kind of I'm not going to get on a rant here, but that's kind of the danger that people run into with social media is, besides all the fakery, besides all the, all that, if people are really posting their successes and the house on the hill, the cars, all that they've attained. And I've dealt with this not with social media so much, but just having an idea and thinking, I'm going to make $10 million tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
But you see all the people's successes because they're proud of it and they're trying to help people. I think some people are genuine, but you don't see the years of struggle and the years of agony and the years of effort and working 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, not sleeping to build that. You don't see all that. That's the 90% that's under the water.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, there's so much. I guess the way I was raised, maybe, with my dad and stuff is I'm big on work ethic.
Very much.
And in fact, I have to be careful when I have people, especially young people on the team that they don't know, they just haven't been raised that way. And I can get frustrated, at a lack of work ethic. But I really like work ethic, if I could say it right. And so, and I think that's wise because that's how things are built,
Very much.
It's all of that, once in a great while you have an overnight success, somebody wins the lottery.
Yeah.
But usually it's built,
True.
And I have more respect for that too.
Oh, 100%.
And the thing is, like you and I have talked about the whole the talent and hard work concept before.
Yeah.
We've had podcasts on that, and that's not really what this is about today. But just to bring that up again, it's the hard work that makes all the difference, and that's what gives me hope.
Yeah.
Is if I know if I hear somebody that's just natural at X, they're natural at playing the drums, whatever, it doesn't matter, and they just, man, they never took lessons, they don't even work at it, they just roll out of bed and play, and they're that good. Well, then it's just like, throw up your hands. Like, but then when you hear about the person that practices and practices and goes and works and works and works, then maybe I think some people think that's disheartening. Like, so much work.
Do that?
But to me, it's like, so I can do it.
Yeah, that gives you hope.
I just got to work at it. Yeah.
Well, again, like, to be super brief on this, for whatever reason, it brought to mind like some of the events we put on at our church.
Yeah.
I mean, the Heart of Christmas and like 4th of July, right? I mean, last year or the year before last, we were, and it's not because anybody dropped the ball, but I remember Pastor Burgess, along with multiple people, I'm sure you were there too, and we were just running. It was supposed to start at 7:30, and at like 7:29, we just got the power. We had an issue with the power, and we were running with our heads cut off through the parking lot, around people trying to get it figured out. And 7:30, it clicked and came on.
Yeah.
So we were working right up to the thing, and then it went off without a hitch. It was beautiful. Everybody loved it, but they don't, they don't
see all that. And in fact, there's people at that event, I remember, because we had scheduled like we had a 100-foot obstacle course, inflatable, and we had scheduled, okay, that's going to blow up at 6:30 or whatever it was. And there's people that showed up at like 5 for the event. They're wandering around. We're like, we don't have chairs out, nothing. We're like, man. And they didn't see all the scramble. It's kind of like the restaurant, the high-end restaurant where you have the classical music, and it's soft and it's quiet and it's romantic and the candlelight and everything, and then you go to the kitchen and it's like the chef is screaming and yelling, and there's clamoring and clanging and breaking glass.
Yes, that's true.
All right, well, point number 1 is the emotional roller coaster. And so I wrote doubt demons. I got a little bit of alliteration in there. And we had a podcast on imposter syndrome, but that's what this is about, is we all experience that self-doubt.
Big time. And
so I think that probably everybody, and we can name names, and we probably won't, but people that are icons and we're apostolics, and so looking in the apostolic realm, that would be, some of these well-known preachers. Yeah. And other ministry leaders, but some of the well-known preachers that we look up to and think of, it's hard to believe it, but they experience self-doubt.
Yeah, it's very true.
I mean, because you've heard, or I've read about, and I've heard some, business moguls and icons talk about that they had self-doubt. You know, it's like, really, you, yeah. And so it's something that we all experience. What the key is, obviously, to overcome that and to do it anyway. Sure. And I think that's what's helpful, is knowing that others experience that. So when we experience it, I've talked about it before, but in our church, I've been shoved outside of my comfort zone so many times, probably starting with the drums. I started playing when I was really young and just didn't feel like I was qualified at all. And then there's so many new, quote unquote ministries or whatever endeavors that we've done. I guess in business speak, that'd be initiatives. So many initiatives that we've implemented that I've been, at the front of or involved in. And so one thing that it has done for me is it has pushed me outside of my comfort zone so many times that here's a paradox. I'm comfortable there. Yeah,
you thrive there.
Yeah, and so I know that being outside of my comfort zone is, it's expected. Yeah.
Well, then that allows growth too. Yes. If you never get out, those are uncomfortable places, and I don't like chaos, and I don't like just me personally. But when you get in those moments, it kind of your true character shines, and it gives you that opportunity to overcome. And then when when it hits again next time, we're like, oh, I did it then, I can do it now. Not that you're relying on yourself, but there's that confidence that begins to build.
Yeah, and you have some experience of being in it. It's like they talk about when you train for like emergency response or whatever. when you train in those instances, or even, combat or something like that, you train in those instances, you train, and then when you get to the real thing, you train as realistically as you can, because then you feel like you've been there before.
Right.
And that's how experience works too. And so with the discomfort, of being pushed outside of a comfort zone, that's one thing. With Pastor Burgess is great at doing that.
Yes.
He pushes people, he's like, you can do it, and he pushes you to your limits. And that has been a blessing to me, even in my personal life.
Oh yeah.
And in my work life, I have just a lot of examples I can think of where, because of being so used to working around here in that capacity, that it's helped me to, you use the word thrive, it's helped me to thrive in in the business world,
Yeah.
One thing I thought of, I didn't write this down, but one thing I thought of is, like, with my work, and I'm not at the pinnacle by any means, but the further that I go and the more advanced I get in my work field, I have found that this being out of your comfort zone and having self-doubt, and it's like, I'm not qualified to do this, is like more and more so. Like, I'll be given responsibilities.
Yeah.
I was just recently given a responsibility to run a panel, and I'm not qualified to do it. And so I'm researching, I'm scrambling, I've got to get ready. I'm up late trying to figure things out. And it's like expected, and it's also, it's kind of like people know, you're like, your superiors know that you're not qualified, but they're pushing you.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so it's helped a lot, and we all experience that self-doubt, but just get used to it.
Yeah.
Get used to the self-doubt.
It's true. And Pastor's very, like you said, good at that. He's nothing with your level, of course, but he just kind of, I want to say he expects it. He knows you can do it, but he's not one that's like, hey, bud, you've got this. Let's do this.
Yeah, no,
he's not wired that way at all. He's like, hey, just do this. And you've never done it in your life. And you just figure it out. If you need help, you ask, but you just, and he'll do it. He's like, oh, nice. And then he moves on.
Yeah.
But you do feel good because you're like, yes, I accomplished it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's funny.
And my love language is words, just so everybody knows. If you want to leave a comment, I can use it. No, so to not hear, it's like, oh my gosh. But to know you did, it's the greatest reward.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I wrote is leadership isn't just innate, and this is Sunday School Kidman podcast, and today's focus is kind of on the leadership aspect, but it's not just innate. Now, some people are more natural than others, obviously, but really, it's developed.
Yeah.
And this is one of the key ways that it's developed.
Absolutely.
Is and with Pastor, the way he is, and even that personality and that style, I think is actually, it's not maybe for some, it's not the preferable quote unquote bedside manner.
Yeah.
But it's actually probably advantageous. We're probably, blessed to have that.
I agree.
Even personality style.
Yep.
Okay, so on the same vein, foundation of failures is my next is point number 2.
Oh boy.
Foundation of failures. So there was an interview where Jeff Bezos states that Amazon's mistakes that they've made have cost billions. Isn't that crazy?
That's
it's
incredible.
Cost billions. And there's a quote, I didn't grab it. I think I've used it already on a podcast somewhere, but Michael Jordan talks about, he has all these stats. I've missed the game-winning shot this many times. I missed this many.
And it's a staggering amount.
It's crazy. But he's the champion.
He's the great.
Yeah.
He is the great.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but like Amazon, I think they had, I wrote a couple down. I didn't research these, so I think these are some of the failures. But they had the Fire Phone that they were going to do.
Yeah.
And then they had Amazon restaurants that they were going to do. And so these were some of the failures I think that he mentioned in that interview. But really, when we fail, John Maxwell has a book called Failing Forward. When we fail, and we talk about failure a lot, And I want to clarify, I don't mean moral failure.
Right.
I don't mean character flaws.
Right.
But I mean failing on, the famous disaster we talk about is the river that leaked everywhere, that we built. When we fail, it should be the crumbling bricks of our failure should be the thing that's building our foundation.
Yes.
Oh man, my phone is over there. Let me see if I can remember Brother Philip Booker was asking me about some of the biggest mistakes we made. I told him I had to think if we made any mistakes. But and so I had listed several. I used the river was one of them. But so one thing I remember was it was a very short period of time. So please don't blast us. But somebody, and this wasn't me, so I can say it wasn't me, but somebody decided for whatever reason that the kids that came on the bus should sit in a certain section separate from everybody else. Now I know there may be some Sunday schools that do this and they have their reasons and,
sure.
and there's a good reason for your area. But for us it was almost like a discrimination thing.
Yeah.
It was like this separated deal. And so we got rid of that. And now we try, and I know it can be difficult, but we try to integrate as much as possible.
Oh, yeah.
We like even proactively so.
Yeah.
We try to integrate it so that you wouldn't be able to tell. I mean, other than, maybe how they're dressed or something.
Sure.
But you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between... because they're just all in the mix. And we do interact with Sunday school, so we get up and move a lot. Yeah. But just having them integrated in. So that's one of those things where I think it's like maybe not a failure per se, but it's a mistake. Yeah. That we were able to learn from and build on. And there was another one. Let me think. There's another one I listed. Oh, yes. Okay, so... This was, and I take responsibility for this, but years ago, we had a kind of a culture in our Sunday school of wanting, this podcast is going off the rails, but of wanting to have the perfect, quote unquote, perfect classroom. We wanted all the kids to sit like angels. Yes. And if you didn't, then boy, we threaten you. You're going to go out.
Sit by your mom and dad.
Yeah, you're going to go sit
on
by
the
your
front
mom
row.
Yeah, in the front row. Yeah, and so that was a culture thing for a while, and we wanted this great, classroom. And somewhere along the line, we realized that the mission was, and then you're bringing the kids on the bus that comes from who knows what environment, right? And then we're expecting them to do that. It's like, yeah, right. But our mission isn't to have the perfect little classroom. Yeah. Our mission is to connect these kids to God. Yeah. And so that was a failure in our culture. And thankfully we've righted the ship, and we still have a long ways to go. But now our focus. We want an orderly classroom, for sure, and still I think that still sometimes we probably go still too far that way of like, hey, you stop talking, which we don't want people talking,
but we're looking for it sometimes too much, too quick.
Exactly. But we've changed our focus, and our culture to like, okay, our mission is to engage kids. Yeah. I can't stop coughing here. Okay, so point number 3. Hidden hours. Yeah. So our spotlight moment, like David and Goliath, our spotlight moment is on Sunday. But this represents just a small, culmination of all the prep that we do and everything. And I don't even necessarily mean, I know that not everybody on the staff is thinking about Sunday school all week. Sure. But there is, for the staff, especially that have been around for a while, there's just a preparation in life, in our standards, in our way of operating. Right. that has happened. And so when we get here on Sunday in our spotlight moment, it's like, man, how did he do that? You know, Brennan breathing the fire or whatever. You know, like, how did he pull that off? Well, I mean, it took practice.
Yeah.
He and research and bought the materials.
Yeah.
You don't see all of that. You know, kind of like we talked about earlier with the duck. You don't see everything that happens. And then when we get here on Sunday, that's where it, you know.
Well, perfect example of that, too, is like, if you could see past this wall right now, there's, can we say what's out there?
Yeah.
Okay. So can we say the next theme? All right. So our next theme for Sunday school is gladiators, right? Just gladiators.
We're going to come up with a better name, but gladiators, the Colosseum.
So right behind this wall, you have like half of a Colosseum built. It's like rounded framing, and you walk in, you know right away that this is going to be epic.
Yeah, because it's about 15 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just know. And so I'm not typically a part because of my work schedule most of the time. I'm working at night currently, but I typically am not involved. Probably I should, but I don't usually come down and build, right? I'm not much of a builder. I can work, but I'm just not great at it. But there's nights to where I drive by going to work. I mean, definitely your car's here. And then you have other random cars, people here working and helping for hours and hours.
Yeah.
You know, there are times where I go work at 8 p.m. at night, and there's times where I go to work at midnight. So I'll be passing by the church at, 11:30 at night. Your car's here on a weeknight or Saturday night.
Yeah.
That's that hidden part that people don't see. They walk in and they say, "Oh,
this is awesome.
Just happened." You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that I make that joke all the time, and sadly, this is a flaw of mine, but sadly, sometimes it's out of frustration. But I mean, this didn't just happen.
Yeah.
It took some work to make this happen. And so when people, don't treat the decor with respect, it's like, hey, you know how long that took to do?
Well, on the same thing, too, we keep talking about the iceberg, but like with pastoral leadership specifically, and evangelism too, but evangelists I think are seen more in a little bit different light. But when it comes to like a pastor, I mean, how many times have you heard them say what I do in the pulpit is like 10%, 5% of my ministry.
Oh yeah.
It's the hours on the phone. It's the hospital visits. It's the business issues. It's dealing with the city and county with our new project, and hours upon hours of leading outside of the spotlight, right?
Yeah, nobody ever sees it.
Nobody sees it. The hours of getting yelled. I've been in the truck with him, and I'm sure you have too, where people, I don't understand why this happens, but they're yelling at him.
Yeah, you can hear it
over the phone. And he's like, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And then he gets up and just does what he does in the pulpit. And it's just amazing because he's such a phenomenal preacher and teacher that that's only 10%.
That's only
of what he
small
does.
Part of it. Yeah, and he's I don't know, he's got the latest iPhone probably or whatever, but if he doesn't have a charger for like 2 hours, his phone's dead.
He's always asking, "You got a charger?"
Yeah, because it's constantly ringing and text messages.
I don't think he ever locks it. Like, I think it's just on all the time.
On. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
and he's very unique leader, like very approachable. You know, people don't want to get off subject here, but people don't really understand the other ways that majority of pastors work and their accessibility. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's a good word. Accessibility is he makes himself so available.
Yep.
It is incredible. So I had written something down that I kind of skipped over, but I just want to mention this really quick. Is great leaders, and I think that this can fit really well with Sunday school leaders because when we have kids that no matter how perfect our little box is, it just doesn't always work out. But we understand, or let me rephrase that, great leaders understand that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the foundation of success.
That is true.
Failure isn't the opposite. So when we fail, it's just another stepping stone. It's like in sales, they say, you just got to get another no out of the way, to get to that yes. And so it's not failure is not the opposite of success. it's just a stepping stone.
That's good.
Okay, so and then I guess the other thing really quick is I wrote like the iceberg. Sunday school leaders' success has a massive foundation that's never seen. It's totally unseen. You don't see that iceberg underneath. You don't see all of that. But that's a leader has to have that, or they fail, and they fail where they don't get back up.
Right.
You know. Okay, so point number 4, the messy middle. And so there's a part between initiating that quote-unquote brilliant new ministry idea or that new theme idea or whatever, you know, the strategy that you're going to do, and then that final execution piece on opening, you know, Sunday, if it's a brand new theme or brand new script or whatever. There's this part in the middle, and you could look at it more of a macro level of this quote-unquote successful, and I think we're always learning, and maybe we're afraid to say we're successful, but a successful children's ministry. There's a part in between where it started, or you took it on maybe, or you took it over, and the pinnacle, or even just the point where you're at.
Yeah.
There's this messy middle.
Yeah.
And so the messy middle is this chaotic period. There's and of course we talked about not too awfully long ago. We talked about the rocket. Remember the rocket analogy?
Yep.
And so this kind of fits into that. But there's this middle part where there's reiterating or problem solving, making adjustments. There's chaos. It's like, oh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's all this part of, you know, like you talked about Heart of Christmas. There's much of that happens. I mean, we've had where we've practiced a segment, like a song or a play or something,
hours,
and we've thrown it out.
Just thrown it out.
And so, so there's all of that happens behind the scenes. Nobody sees that, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like effort, and like we want to make this cool. This is going to be so neat, and then you're like, you know what? It's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know, or hey, we got to do this instead.
Yeah.
And or sometimes it spawns another idea, like, oh, let's do this.
Right.
We've also had it where we've worked on something. In fact, this was a few years ago. We had worked on something, and it gave us the idea of this new song. Like, oh, this would be cool. And pastor's like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Oh, this year? Yeah, we got 2 weeks left. You know,
we can be here to midnight every night. No biggie.
And so, yeah. So anyway, there's that messy middle, and we have to realize that. And this is really good for me because I like all my ducks to be in a row. I like everything to be, you know, neatly compartmentalized and everything. But we have to remember, especially in children's ministry, it's a mess.
It's a mess. You know, and that's really where good leaders thrive, is in that middle. To where, first of all, you've got, especially if it's a new initiative, you mentioned that word, or a new theme or a new something that's different, and people are already kind of leery and they're kind of like pump the brakes a little bit, and then things start not happening like you would want them to happen. But it's so important as a leader for people to be able to buy in, you know, to what your vision is. And you do a great job of this, of like vision casting and like, hey, this is why this is going to work, and bringing the excitement and the hard work and the energy day in and day out. That way, when that messy middle happens, they've gone. It's kind of like a leader in the military, right? There's so many stories, and I love them, of going through the trenches, and they're, you know, out of ammo. You think of the worst. It's raining. They're in the mud. They're out of ammo. They're pinned down. But you've got that leader that just stands up when the bullets are flying. All right, man, let's go.
Yeah.
And against all odds, they succeed. And the reason why they succeeded, because they bought into that, not because of his title, but they bought into that sergeant or that lieutenant, the commander.
Yes.
And they were behind him, and that unity just rose, and something great. And we're still talking about it 100 years later. You know?
Right, yeah.
Not that they had some innate ability. They just bought into the vision and bought into what was happening. And thick and thin, they made it happen.
Yeah. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Very true.
Yeah, that's so true. There's so many different examples, but one of the things, like what you just said, kind of made me think of is, so if we can expect that there's going to be messiness as a leader, when what you said about when people are like, I don't know about this. I don't know if this is going to work. And then when you have that mess, you got to remember to expect that, because what happens when we're leading something and we start to see this messiness or something goes off the rails a little bit, is it gives validation to the naysayers.
Yeah.
It gives validation to those people that said, I don't know about this.
I knew it.
Yeah, exactly. I knew that wasn't going to work. And so we need to, and you know, we can't just blindly forge ahead, but we need to forge on, knowing that, hey, this is just the messy middle.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily validate all the negative, comments that we've had. This is just, we're pushing through, and we.
I mean, I've seen you do that before when things have not worked out. We go backstage, and people are people, and they'll, I hate to say the word complain, but they're like, man, that didn't work out. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll get it next week. All right, it's all right. No big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Just, you got to brush it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to just keep on going. So I guess we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I put crisis crossroads. Do you like all this alliteration I put in here?
I do.
So crisis crossroads. So growth is rarely linear.
Yes.
Or packaged up all pretty and nice. So every Sunday we deal with chaos, and we talk about small c, controlled, and capital chaos. So we have controlled chaos every Sunday. And especially with the style that we typically do with interactivity, where the kids are getting up out of their seat and stuff, that's chaos.
Oh, yeah.
But we do that so that we can fulfill the mission that God's given us, the mandate that God's given us, so that we can engage the kids and work through it. And so we understand that this messiness is not failure. This, it doesn't have to be this tidy, neat little package.
Yeah.
A good friend, Brother Chris Bradshaw in Tennessee, he mentioned something. He just said it the other day. When you pray for rain, expect mud. So, we're praying for rain. Today, Brother Brett was passing out some kind of, it was cinnamon or something. It was like but it was like Pop Rocks.
Oh, yeah.
And so, have you remember Pop Rocks?
Yeah.
So we were talking about, we were laughing about, like, I wonder what, I said, I wonder what this would sound like in a microphone, because we have our headset mics.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, we could be like, I can't remember what he said. Like, the sound of a rushing mighty wind, and open your mouth,
It's like fire.
And so then we were listening, and it was like, well, actually it sounds more like rain, like on the roof out here.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, the former rain and the latter rain together. Anyway, I don't know what that's about, but yeah. So when you pray for rain, you want the Holy Ghost rain.
Yeah.
Expect mud.
Yep.
And so when we want more kids to come on the buses, we want more kids to worship God and get out of their seats, but expect some messiness. Expect a little bit of mud.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's recap here. So the emotional roller coaster, and really the main thing about that is just the doubt.
Yeah.
Overcome that doubt. There's always going to be that, and everyone has it.
Yeah.
And obviously, like we talked about with comfort zone, you can get more used to it and get more, and you go to different levels where that thing doesn't bother you anymore.
Sure.
But if you are growing, then this thing is bothering you now.
Right.
Right. And then number 2, foundation of failures. Failure is not the opposite of success.
Yeah. It's building blocks.
It's building blocks. We talked about that before. Remember the song? You turn my stumbling block.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh, man.
And then the hidden hours. And this is the key is just understanding and knowing. I think with a lot of this, and then number 4, the messy middle, but like the hidden hours, the failure, the messy middle, all of these, if we can just know going into it. Often we get so frustrated with a project because we expected it to go perfectly well.
Yeah. Yep.
And then and rarely do they. And so when you're changing a tire, you can run into all kinds of issues.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go into a project expecting that there's going to be issues, not being a pessimist,
Right.
but just being a realist,
It's life, yeah.
expecting that there are going to be issues, and then on those one-offs where everything went perfectly, celebrate. That's great.
Thank God.
But if we can go in to a project expecting that, and so the same thing with all of these items here, I think that's the biggest thing is, if this can help somebody, is when you go into a ministry endeavor or when you're dealing with Sunday school and you're like, man, I'm failing, I'm beating my head against the wall,
Yeah, nothing's working.
nothing's working. Yeah. Is just knowing like this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be hard.
Yes.
And so if you understand that, I think it helps take the edge off.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
All right, just a shout out really quick. And I might start doing these where I highlight certain ones. I know some of these, some of our other friends that have podcasts, that's what they do. Brother Booker recently, well, by the time this airs, a few weeks ago, he highlighted our podcast and such kind words. I mean, he was just incredible. I don't know if I can do as good of a job as he can, but I'll just shout out the ones that we have. So, of course, Brother Booker's podcast, Apostolic Children's Ministry 2.0, that's with Philip Booker. And then the Apostolic Children's Network, that's with Brother Chris Bradshaw. That's who I was talking about. Pray for rain, expect mud. Growing Up with Papaw, I think I said that right. That's with Brother Jason Ashley. He's in Oklahoma, I believe. And then Sunday School Minute with Brother Eric Stender. And so these are typically shorter ones. They're like 5-6 minutes, I think. And they're directed to Sunday school teachers and leaders. And then Brother James Pelletier has 2. Sunday School Junkie is his Sunday school podcast. And then he has another one called Truism. They're both really good. So, and then, of course, Kidman Backstage, you can check us out on YouTube. You can probably search that, or the official name of the channel is @Gabe-Baker, and you can find all of our different videos and stuff. So, all right, well, I think that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.